Hello and welcome to the first video of my channel. So the idea behind the channel comes from the problem that Hume articulated a few centuries ago. Hume noticed that you cannot derive a value judgment from a fact. This problem has often been formulated as you can't derive an ought from an is.
I'm going to speak today about the relationship between science and human values. Now, it's generally understood that questions of morality, questions of good and evil and right and wrong, are questions about which science officially has no opinion. It's thought that science can help us get what we value, but it can never tell us what we ought to value.
This is precisely what I try to do in this channel. This is, in a way, my middle finger that I show to Hume, whom I admire immensely. When I see the political debates today, it rarely even is a trial to derive an ought from an is. It usually is just a bunch of people going from their ideological standpoint, trying to find facts that would somehow justify their position.
Recognized under our law as a person under the law.
Answer the question.
No. You know what the answer is.
Is it biologically a human life?
No. You know what the answer is.
I do. It's in every biological test work in the world. At conception, that is a human life.
The only
you ignore that reality. You guys talk about being the party of science.
Listen, hold on.
This is so a-science.
There is no question.
This is not reality, guys.
What I will try to do in this channel is to explore the facts that I know and I believe to be true, and then extract from that the value judgments, or the so-called political opinions. I personally don't know what I believe is right or wrong, but I certainly have an idea about what I believe to be true. I'm trying to explore that myself, and I'm willing to take you with me in this journey of exploration. Now in this video, I'm going to explore the hypergamous nature of women to try and make a case for abortion. The political correctness of the far left has made it so that it's only red-pilled right-leaning individuals who are talking about hypergamy today.
That's what hypergamy is, okay?
That women are hypergamous.
Jeff, that's what hypergamy is. I'm not going to go over that too much.
They're usually pro-life as well, and quite traditionalists in their line of thinking. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, although when I was trying to make up my mind about abortion, I couldn't find strong reasons why it couldn't be justified. Even from a societal standpoint, it's hard to see how having an unwanted baby is good for the general public. So I had to get to the bottom of this. One of the places that seemed logical for me to look at is the human mating strategy. So this video is going to be mainly about hypergamy. I'll try to back my claims with scientific studies or arguments made by influential people, like philosophers, psychologists, and scientists. So let's try to understand what is hypergamy and how it's a fact. Hypergamy is, simply put, the strategy that women follow in their sexual mating. We can sum it as the tendency of women to mate with men who are the highest possible in the dominance hierarchy, as expressed by Jordan Peterson.
The chimp who was at the top of the male dominance hierarchy, who remained at the top relatively stably so that he wasn't brutally murdered, say, by two chimps that were below him in the dominance hierarchy, was actually kind of a good leader in some sense, you know. So he got along well with the females in the troop and maybe even attended to their children to some degree.
Once we lay down the facts, we can produce our value judgments about abortion, being right or wrong for that matter. All of what I say in this video is backed with studies and experts' opinions that you'll find in the description below. As with other mammals, most women invest heavily in parenting and are choosy when it comes to mating. Men, on the other hand, are forced to compete intensively for access to mating, especially short-term sex. In 95% of mammals, males provide very little direct investment in the well-being of their offspring. However, this is not the case in human beings. When men do commit to a long-term relationship, however, the costs increase, and thus the level of choosiness are predicted to increase accordingly. So we can see how men would have a double strategy when it comes to mating, as do women. When a woman is looking for good genes, she is willing to trade her womb for some good quality sperm that will potentially give birth to a high quality baby without much commitment from the father's side. Although when she's looking for protection and shelter, she will settle for lower quality genes for potentially higher quality long-term commitment. The men, on the other hand, will settle for lower quality women if they're only trying to spread their sperm as much as they can, i.e., casual sex. They will, however, be choosy when it comes to long-term relationships because it demands a bigger investment on their part. We can see how men and women have contradictory strategies at different times. Note that we're only referring to general behavior and not to each individual. I'm not saying that every woman and every man behaves in that manner, but the general tendency is that. The exceptions, well, they can go fuck themselves for that specific reason, being exceptions. So what do we mean by higher quality males, you may ask? While this term may refer to a variety of qualities, one of them that is predominant is culturally successful men. Because we know statistically that culturally successful men have lower mortality rates. So evolutionarily speaking, this makes perfect sense. For more information on where I brought that claim from, you can check David C. Geary's research in the description below. And then you may say, what does culturally successful men mean? Well, it depends on which culture. In Western culture, for example, culturally successful men are those who have the most access to money. A study made by Dr. Monique Borgerhoff Mulder of the University of UC Davis studied the behavior of a polygamous population from Kenya called Kipsigis. In this population, choice of marriage partners is technically made by the young woman's family. The twist here is that in this society, land and cattle are controlled by men and inherited only by sons. Therefore, gaining access to these resources has important reproductive consequences for women. Given this relation, it is not surprising that across an 18-year period of research, Dr. Monique Borgerhoff found that the two men offering the most land were chosen as husbands by 13 out of 29 brides in their families, and they got married 11 times during that period, while the two lowest ranking men got married only once. So in the case of Kipsigis, those who have access to more land are those who are considered culturally successful. Many studies have been made on this subject across cultures, and the same pattern seems to be present. I will put some more of those studies in the description below. This actually brings a lot of hope to desperate men, say, incels, for example. Because this means that women preferences are not exactly completely biological, as some people may claim, but can actually adapt rather quickly if the cultural circumstances change. I can go on explaining what constitutes a higher quality female, but I'll skip that, as it isn't relevant for my argument. Which brings me to the second part of my video. How in the world can you justify abortion from hypergamy? Well, the argument as formulated in my head is quite simple. If you hold it as an axiom that evolution deterministically takes us to a place that is better than the place we are now in regards to our environment, well, because otherwise, why would we even need to evolve? This means that evolution holds what is best for us as a species. One might object to this by saying, well, evolution doesn't even care about the species, but it only cares about the gene, as stated brilliantly by Richard Dawkins in his book The Selfish Gene.
An individual organism is a throwaway survival machine for the self-replicating coded information which it contains.
Fair enough. But genes play together in a single gene pool, and they collaborate sometimes for the best fate of the whole gene pool. The gene pool, in this case, is the species, in some broad sense. So evolution gave women the capacity to detect the best suited males for mating, so that our best genes thrive. The only problem is, well, some of us men can be quite sneaky, and we do a pretty good job at displaying that we are high-quality males, while we are actually not. I therefore think that abortion may be justified in the case that a woman makes a bad judgment. In other words, a woman is a mortal and can very well make mistakes. If under some circumstances she decides that a man is worthy of procreation, and then she later discovers that this man isn't what she thought he was, she should be able to make the choice to withdraw. An objection to that argument may be, well, she should have been cautious in the first place. Well, this means that we would live in a place where women are too afraid to make such mistakes. This was certainly the case before the birth control pill, for example. And I specifically think that we should give the woman a certain period where abortion is legal. Let's say, for example, 2 months. She should figure out in that period whether the man is worthy of her investment in the baby or not. She should also figure out if the man will help her raise the baby or not. It's still pretty harsh on the woman, but the objection is fair. She should have known better than associating with a low-quality man. And while I'm for a society where people are allowed to make mistakes and learn from them, I'm also for a society where repent should be regarded as a high value. Even if we look at this from a religious perspective, the issue of ensoulment has always created controversy. Thus, we can argue that at a certain time, say 40 days or 2 months, for example, the fetus is developed enough to be considered a human being, because eventually, the law implicitly states that there is something divine about us human beings, that we have fundamental human rights. The question remains, does a fertilized egg have that divine touch, or not yet?